All right, I'm Hynek. I'm your European friend that you didn't know that you have. If I'm a little bit loopy, it's because I flew in last night and a cat tried to kill me in my sleep. So please forgive any slight loopiness. I did not sleep a lot since I don't know what time zone I'm in. When I'm not jet lagged, I also maintain way too many open source projects. Most notably Adders, which you may or may not heard of it. It's the direct ancestor, the daddy of the much beloved data classes that my friend Casey is probably going to say more about tomorrow. And it's currently more than 18 million downloads per month, which is 4x of Django. So to give you an idea. Some of you who are more on the operations side may have heard of Schlawack, which is not as popular, but if I screw it up, best case, the PyPI CI breaks. Worst case, you cannot download any packages anymore. So to give you an idea of how much anxiety-inducing my work is, because all of them are used in production all over the world, including us. So despite this, as I already said, anxiety-inducing body of work, I'm not going to say that I'm good at maintaining software, and I'm most certainly not happy at maintaining an open source project. Like having a lot of projects does not spark joy. And I tried thanking them and giving them away, but nobody wanted to take them. So I guess I'm stuck with them. I'm occasionally really bad at it too, because I am allowed to do it on my work time, but you still have to balance it with your usual duties. And so sometimes I don't have the time because I'm in a crunch to finish something, because I'm traveling to conferences, because I'm preparing for conferences, which also takes a lot of time for someone like me for whom English is the third language. And sometimes I do have the time, but I don't have the energy. I'm sure you notice just laying on a couch on a Saturday morning, and you have the choice between a book and fixing those pull requests. Sometimes the book wins, that's all I'm going to say. So I'm not going to talk about how shitty it is to maintain open source software, though, because I think that's a well-established fact. What I'm going to give you instead are tools and approaches to make this whole process less shitty for you while still shipping a high-quality package. This is the kicker. You could just give up, I guess, but I'm trying to still deliver what I promised. And to get there, we have to talk about removing friction. So as a maintainer, this means mainly that you remove friction for your contributors, because your job is mostly leading. That's your role. You're a product manager. You want to uphold the quality of your project, because shipping buggy software is not good for your mental health, I can tell you that. You have to decide on the scope of your project and things like that. And managing, of course, your community, setting the tone, which I think is the biggest privilege as a maintainer, that you get to kick out toxic people before they become a problem. In practice, of course, you will still write code, especially in the beginning when nobody knows that your project even exists, which is a time you will remember fondly later on. But your goal is to set up your project that anybody can contribute to your project, even you, after coming back from your mandatory annual 6-week-long vacation. Just 5? No, I heard that you Americans get only 4 weeks at once. So how do you even relax? I mean, you might be super stressed out. Anyhow, once your project matures, development velocity goes down in any case. And it's a good thing. You don't want to fiddle with code that is in production all the time. But once you come back, you will be very grateful for everything that you put into place that will help you to hit the road running while contributing to your own open source project. And when a willing contributor arrives, whether it's you or someone else, you want them to be super easy to get started. You want to give them an early first feeling of success, because motivation tends to evaporate really, really fast until you have a certain amount of buy-in. So give them the dopamine they need to hold through. Then give them a clear path from the start to the finish, which means like merging of their code. People do not mind put work into quality. if they are using your package in production, they have an intrinsic interest for this package to remain high quality, because otherwise they get paged at 4 a.m. in the morning. And so what I've learned is that having a long but concrete and actionable to-do list is beneficial for everyone involved. And even if it looks worse on the first sight, it's better than a short to-do list, but that is vague. And as Kojo mentioned in his keynote, not everyone who could contribute to your code knows how to contribute to open source projects. Some people just create a GitHub account to fix some bug somewhere. Or even in software engineering, which was like his whole point. So if you tell people what to do specifically, additionally to the code they are contributing, you are opening your project up to a whole new audience of contributors. Now, what you also want to do is to give them a short feedback loop. And this is so important, I cannot stress this enough. In this context, this means this is the time between trying something out and seeing the result, the feedback on that change. For me, it's the #1 in development ergonomics. And the reason is because it encourages experimentation. It's exactly what you want. If someone wants to contribute to your code, you want to encourage them to fiddle around with the parts and see what happens. And for me personally, the lack of getting quick feedback on my changes is usually the #1 reason to abandon work on a project for other people, like for other projects. So, in the following, I'm going to show you how I try to remove friction from my projects. And for that, I will talk you through the life cycle of a contribution to one of them. And it's going to be a play in 3 acts, featuring you, who wants to contribute to a project of mine, and me, who wants to get your changes into the project as fast as possible, with as little work as possible for myself. And ideally, I want to bind you to the project so I get more of the sweet free labor from you over the years. Because my request for an all-day Hynek track has been refused again, I feel like conference organizers are scheming against me. There's a conspiracy going on. I will present mostly concepts and ideas. And if you are interested in the concrete implementation of those projects, there will be a link to a page at the end, which will list them all. It will show you everything you want to know. Like, I'm talking about concrete things, but I cannot spell them out for you because it would take too long. And we will start with your part, Act 1. It should be entirely about you. If I have to intervene in Act 1, I have failed both you because you encourage friction that you shouldn't have, and myself because I want to be out skateboarding and not derp on GitHub answering questions that shouldn't even have to be asked. So, if you want to contribute, where do you start? The first thing is that you need the source code of the project. It sounds obvious, but sometimes I find it surprisingly hard to find. Like, I'm in the docs of a project, and often the easiest way to get to the source code is to click edit on GitHub, which I still find kind of scary. It feels to me like it's going to make a fork or something right away. So what I do is that in all my projects, I have a block like this, and it's in the GitHub README. It's in the PyPI long description, and it's in the documentation. And as you can see, it cross-references all 3 places. So that means that once you found it in one place, you know about all the places. Then there's this important part, encouragement. Many people don't think that they can contribute to open source, which is rubbish. Everybody can, if they want and if they have the time. And also link to a helpful guide that will get people started and show them how to do this. And this is a well-known file on GitHub. It's called contributing. It can be an RST file or a Markdown file. And it gets linked prominently whenever someone opens a pull request. Now, this file should, again, encourage people to follow through. It should describe the development process so people know what's ahead. So those people who are not used to work in software engineering or in open source at all. So you want to help them and show them what you expect from them, because they cannot read your mind over the internet. And explain your expectations, like code standards, the coverage you expect, the behavior you expect, which is another well-known file called the Code of Conduct, which used to be a very controversial topic. I'm very happy that this changed by now. So finally, you want to tell them how to set up a local development environment for this quick feedback loop that I have been harping about all the time. And those who know me will be very surprised to learn that I have opinions on this. So firstly, I use setup tools. I know there are alternatives. I know that people have strong opinions about setup tools and about those alternatives. But for all its faults, setup tools has still certain features that I came to appreciate, so I still haven't moved off, and there is no shame in using setup tools. So first thing is you tell people to create a virtual env because you don't want them to screw up their whole Python installation, like the global thing. I've seen like a lot of horror stories, people screwing up their systems. Then I just ask them to install my package as editable, and which means whenever you change the source code, the installed package changes along with it. And we use an extra dependency called def. So who is familiar with this notation? OK, some people will learn something today. So this is, as I said, optional dependencies. And you can have multiple of those, and then you just separate them by commas. It looks something like this. You can use them in your setup.py, but you can also use them in your requirements.txt. And it's quite possible that your favorite project has features that are gated behind optional dependencies that you haven't known that it exists, like your lib3. You can have broadly, which is a nice, relatively modern compression format. So, on the development side, so as a maintainer, all you have to do is to pass a dictionary to setuptools.setup. And this dictionary has to map names like docs or tests to a list of dependencies. In this case, Sphinx, coverage, PyTest. That's all there is to it. And since setup.py is Python code, you can build this dictionary, of course, successively or incrementally. So what you can do is something like this, that you define an environment called def, which is the combination of tests and docs. And this is what I ask you to install when you're setting up your environment. So the moment you install def, you can run your tests. And then you just pass it into setuptools.setup. It's called extras require, and it takes the dictionary that you just built. It is very simple, and it's very useful for things like that. Especially if you want your package to be able to work with dependencies that are compiled, like C extensions, but you don't want to make them mandatory. This is a great way to achieve that. Now, you can run the tests. You can build your documentation. And I'm going to say, unless you do have a mandatory C extension, this is all it should take for people to get your tests running. But we have two problems now. So first, your contributors still have to remember how to run those tests. In my opinion, it should always be PyTest, because tests are code. Ideally, you probably have more testing code than business code. And code needs to be maintained. And which means I'm not saying you should write clever tests, but you should use the best tools available. And I strongly disagree with the notion of purity of tests that some people are peddling. But still, I don't want you to remember what's the best test runner. That's not my job for you to remember. And some people solve this with makefiles, especially people coming from corporate environments that have a more homogeneous environment that can expect certain things. But it's problematic. And it's problematic, especially in Windows. And I don't know if you heard about it, but the vast majority of Python users are on Windows. So if your development environment is bad for Windows users, you're cutting off a significant portion of potential contributors. The second problem is that you are testing with only one Python version. And you most likely want to support more than one. If you're lucky, you don't have to support Python 2 anymore. But still, you will probably want to support not just the latest one, but maybe 2 or 3. Now, you could start creating manually virtual environments and install your packages into it. But fortunately, we have a tool for that that solves both problems, tox. Completely oversimplified, it allows you to declare virtual environments, so dependencies and so on, and then it will build your package, install it into that environment, and then run commands that you can set freely. And I think it's easiest to just show you an example. So you need a file called tox.ini. And first you define the environments you want to have. In this case, it's Python 2.7, Python 3.7, PyPI, and PyPI 3. Now, you set global settings, which in this case, we are going to say we want to install the local package with the extra tests. So not dev, not docs, just tests. So it's as little dependencies as possible. And then we run pytest. And if you do this squirrely braces post-arc thing at the end, you can even pass arguments to pytest. So when you run a line like this means that it will run pytest in the environment for Python 2.7 with the argument -x, which means a fail after the first test failure. So this is kind of useful. So sometimes you don't even have to create a local development environment. You can just get away with using tox. So what this means that you need to only install one tool called tox to test your package against all environments that you need to. And I find this is a valid expectation for most Python projects, that I just go into the project directory, type tox, and everything gets tested. And tox is a lot more versatile than you might think, so I will bring more examples how it can be useful in your everyday work. Now, there's more than code quality, more to code quality than just tests. There are also issues of style. Consistency makes your code more readable, especially when multiple people are working on a code base. So like PEP8 is a classic example. Then some things are not wrong, but unfortunate, or they are pointing at something that is wrong. For example, unused variables. Maybe you set a variable, then you use a different variable later on. Or unused imports. Best case, you get wasted memory and runtime. And the process of checking code without running it is called linting. The name is based on the stuff that you find in your pockets or your belly buttons. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to look at what A said for that. It's nothing terrible, but life is better without some shit in your belly button, so I guess it's better. So the most famous linter, of course, is Flake8. And it combines actually multiple tools. It doesn't do that much itself. It uses a tool called PEP8 for style, PyFlakes for correctness. And I'm going to go out on a limb and claim that code that passes Flake8 is usually better code than code that does not. And it's definitely more readable. Now, what is the single commit every Python project has that uses setup tools? Okay, those who giggle or groan have used setup tools before. So it turns out that this loser only forgot to run his linters, because there is a tool for that. There is a tool that will prevent you from uploading broken packages to PyPI, and it's called aptly check manifest. And finally, have you ever seen a project page like this? So what this means is that PyPI was not able to parse and render your README. So it will just show it as plain text, which is not very pretty. And I'm using this, by the way, with permission, so I'm not shaming anyone. And if you look closely, you will see this is actually the test PyPI instance, which is great for testing something like this and preventing it to happen in actually a production environment. It's a great training ground. So there is a linter for that. It's Twine, which is also used for uploading packages to PyPI. That is also able to check your README, that this will be able to render it nicely. Now, linting and checking is great, but what's even better? Making that expensive computer actually fix it, because the computer seems to know what it wants to see. So this is where automatic formatters come into play, and they are an absolute game changer. Because once you embrace them, you and your contributors can focus on the problem you're solving and not on where you press enter or what kind of quotes you press. And this is amazing. It's freeing. Like, everybody has just a limited amount of mental energy, and this is like a swath of energy just gets freed. And there's been a bunch of formaters for Python for quite a while, but none of them were quite there. Like, there was always some nibbles until Black appeared. Black formats your code into a canonical format that is always deterministic. So if you put the same code in, the semantically same code, it doesn't just fix the violations of the style, it will actually bring it into a certain form. So the code looks always the same. It's much easier to read code formatted by Black. And it is way stricter than Go. I was always very envious of Go having the FMT tool. But it's actually too loose. Black is much stricter. It will always format it to a certain format, and it's really nice. It has only one bug, in my opinion, and is that you have to set this setting. This is my hill. I will happily die on it. Don't be afraid to enter the enter key. Write poetry, don't write prose. There's a great blog post by Trey Heiner about that. Now, finally, there's also imports. I like my imports in clean, sorted blocks. But doing this by hand is a pain in the back. Fortunately, there's isort, and isort has been there for quite a while. And it will sort your imports into beautiful, sorted blocks separated by type. So standard library, third party, your code. And together with Black, this is basically most of the code formatting that can come up in code review completely automated. You don't have to argue about it. You don't have to look for it. It's just done by the computer. It's great. But now, how do you make, or how do I make you run those tools? All those linters, checkers, formatters that I have all mentioned. Some of them, like check manifest, imply packaging. So you have to put them into talks. So there's actually a package build and everything. But for everything else, there's a better tool, and it's called pre-commit. Pre-commit allows you to define hooks that run before each git commit, and if they fail, the commit won't go through. It will not allow you to commit this code. But you can also use it to run against all files, so you can make it part of your CI. You don't, so the users don't even have to use it together with Git. And to use it, it's actually very simple. You need a configuration file in your project directory called precommit config.yaml, and the A is mandatory, and I'm very upset by that because it's literally the only file on my computer. It's called .yaml and not YML. Yes, I'm small-minded like this. So Flake 8 has direct support, which is at this point logical because the author of precommit also maintains Flake 8 now, and basically half of the Python community now. So it's Anthony Sotile. He's a very prolific contributor. If you see him, get him a drink. And it's very straightforward. You point to its repo. You pick a version tag. So your checkers and formatters are pinned. And then you choose a hook, which in this case is Flake 8. There isn't anything else. And that's all. And the nice thing about pre-commit is that it's Python aware, so it will store and manage your virtual environments that it installs those tools into, so you do not have to screw with this yourself. And it will do all of this transparently. So pre-commit has never broken into my face because of some packaging issues, which is high praise for a Python tool. So with all this in place, no, wait. Right, I forgot one thing. You can also choose the Python version, which is also important, because depending, especially for Flake 8, because depending on the language you're running it, you have different standards that you want to enforce. Now, with this in place, I could ask you to install precommit, but precommit is a Python package. So if I ask you to install a Python package globally on your computer, my bug tracker becomes a Python packaging support forum. And this is not a joke. This happened to me before, so I'm not making the mistake again. So what I do now is that I wrap it into the dev extra that I showed you before, that I built. It's like this tests plus docs. Well, pre-commit is there too. So once you run this pip install dev, you can also run pre-commit. So now I want to ensure that you actually run it. Again, you should run pre-commit install, so it will be run before each git commit. But I am not going to rely on that. So it's time for another tox environment. This one I like to call lint. It depends only on pre-commit, and it will not install your package, which is really handy because it saves you a lot of time. This is probably one of the most expensive steps when testing software is the installation of the package. And then I just run all the hooks against all the files, and if any of the pre-commit hooks fail, this tox environment will fail, so you put it into your CI, and you always know that all the linters are passing, and nobody has to remember anything. So now your code is perfect. So what is missing now? Documentation. And how do you make sure that it's built? You guessed it. Of course, we are using another tox environment. I'm going to assume that you're using Sphinx, which Sphinx is really good. I think it's one of the biggest boons of the Python community. It's so good that Apple is using it for their Swift docs. And so what I do here is that I install the extras docs that I showed you before. In this case, it's just Sphinx. And then I ensure that it builds the documentation is HTML. I run all the doc tests. And this is something very dear to my heart. The only thing that is worse than having no examples in your documentation is having wrong examples. Because if there's not an example, you just have to figure it out. If there's a mistake in your example, you have to first realize that the failing of the example is not your fault, but the fault of the writer of the documentation. So if you're someone like insecure like myself, it can take you an hour until you realize, oh wait, it's not my fault. So using doc tests is great to ensure that all your examples are actually doing what they're supposed to do. So if your README has doc tests too, run it against them too. Now by running talks, by typing 3 characters, you ensure that your tests pass, so the code is good. The linters pass, so the code is beautiful. That the documentation is building, and all the examples are correct. And this is the only thing I expect you as a contributor to remember, TOX, T-O-X. And everything I just told you, you can do on your local machine. I may not even know that you exist, and you may have the perfect patch for me, which means you can work from everywhere. I like to travel a lot, and sometimes I really long for conference Wi-Fis. And if you caught the talk before me in this room, you got a bit of an idea what problems face outside our tech bubble. So everybody who would try to use GitHub in rural Africa or on an Asian island will know that the current internet is broken for most of the world. And nobody of those responsible cares because they have all cozy Google Fiber. But this is not just about my laziness or the consequences of colonialism. It's also about my insecurity and about empathy. Because I don't like publishing unfinished work and then just wait for feedback. I'm very self-conscious. I should be over that, but I'm not. So I don't want to force you to push unfinished pull requests and then wait whatever I have to say about that. So I give you the tools to ensure that your first PR is as good as possible, and then we just sort out the details. So now you're done. You open up pull requests. And if you look at your watch, we spend most of the time in Act 1. So I told you I want to get involved as late as possible. So I automate as much as possible. But certain things cannot be automated. And this is where another well-known file enters, and it's the pull request template. And this one allows you to add checklists and to new pull requests, so they get inserted automatically into the pull request, into the comment field. And I love checklists, because checklists are the only reason why airplanes don't crash every day. Checklists are the only reason why doctors wash their hands before they cut you open. There are programs for humans, which is like the second best thing, basically, after programs for computers. And rendered, they look something like this. And you can use it to remind people to add documentation for their changes, to write changelog entries for their changes. And now me, or a co-maintainer, have to verify that you, the contributor, have done everything mentioned before. Of course, I'm using the same checklist because I barely remember what I had for dinner yesterday. I don't remember this list. So while reviewing, I referred to this list. And what I don't want to do is to clone your fork on my computer. And this isn't even about security. It's just about, again, my laziness. And also, I want to encourage contribution through the web interface. It's actually really nice on GitHub because it's even less friction. And it's perfect for typos. I love typos. I love when people fix my language because my English is atrocious. So, but asking people to fix my grammar, that they fork my repository, that they check it out, that they commit it, that they push it again, and then open a pull request. That's a lot to ask for someone who just wants to help me out real fast. So what I need is to be able to run the tests on the internet, which is, of course, continuous integration, or CI. And those of you who remember the dark ages of open source, like Kojo, old man talking, only the most prestigious project had continuous integration, because in the best case scenario, someone donated you a server, usually Rackspace back then, and you had to run it yourself. I don't know if anybody is in open source for being a system operator. I see no hands, no? So that was a very bad time in that case. But then came Travis. And Travis had his ups and downs over the years, but it arguably democratized the continuous integration. It was very easy to add CI to your open source project. You just copy and pasted a bunch of YAML. And then you just reused your Tox environments, and that was it. Those were the good old times of 2018. However, then came Idera. And I'm not going to comment on them specifically because I don't want to get sued. But do your own research about this company and about companies they bought before. And yeah, but here's the fact. Shortly after taking over Travis, they laid off a huge part of their technical workforce. And that made what was supposed to be one slide just telling you to use Travis a very unpleasant research project. And unfortunately, every other option to replace Travis is more complex, lacking some other way, or costing money. And the problem is, I personally consider Travis a time bomb now, at least the free offering. So we will see how it will unfold. But Idera is not famous for spending a lot of money on open source. So it is sad, because it cannot be understated how influential Travis was for open source software. It just can't. But on the other hand, it's probably a good thing because it's an end of a monoculture. So we have a lot more CIs nowadays. Azure Pipelines is pushing to be the next big thing. However, then they managed to break their pre-installed Pythons for 24 days straight, which is something that Travis never managed. We now have GitHub Actions, which is now in public beta. So if you ask for access to it, you will just get it right away. I have not played with it because I got access like a week ago. So good things are happening, so maybe it's a good thing. And GitHub already provides a bunch of automation before. So there are GitHub checks, which allows you to integrate third-party services, and they just give you a check mark or a red X. If some check failed or passed, it could be CI, it could be something like coverage checks. And then there's the more sophisticated thing of GitHub bots. And Marietta, who basically revolutionized the CPython core development workflows, gave up talks and webinars on it. So you should check it out if you're interested in this at all. So much for the technical parts of the PR process. What happens after all the checks pass? Someone has to review it. And in the beginning, it's you, of course. But as your project grows, you don't want to review everything yourself. You literally can't. It's impossible in the long run. And you also don't want to triage all bugs. You don't want and can't answer all questions. There's a natural limit on what you can do, especially if you have to do it in your free time. So what you need to do is to build a community. And community building is hard. There's been a lot of talks and blog posts. I don't have that much to add to it. But what I want to talk about a bit is about community empowerment. I think, and it's backed by my own experience, it is very important that you give your contributors the feeling that the project is theirs too. And notably, when I wrote this and made these slides, it was way before the drama around the last PyCon US. It is shitty to let others do the work to build your brand for nothing in return. So contributions should really be celebrated. And if you're taking all the fame to yourself, it may feel great. In the short term, you get to retweet all the praise, how great you are, and how great your project is. But eventually, it might backfire on you. It probably will. So people will get burned out for not feeling valued, and they get resentful. In the best case, they just leave the project. In the worst case, they write blog posts. Yeah. So once adders grew beyond a certain size, and a lot of the code was from other contributors, most notably typing. I have like 3 contributors who wrote most of the typing code, and I still do not understand it fully, so I always pull them into the issues that need to be reviewed. But I've also felt bad for making it to look like just my work. It still had my name in GitHub. And also practical reasons, because certain functionality on GitHub is only available if you use an organization. So I moved adders into a GitHub organization, and anyone who contributed to the project can have full access. Now it's our project. And also, if it's less obvious that the project is yours, it's less likely that people will add you on Twitter telling you that your free labor is ruining their lives. So, true story. Now, how do you decide whom to take in, whom you give commit access? The answer is it's not a big deal. Don't make it a big deal. If someone wants commit rights, you can give them to them. I learned this Zen approach from my friend Corey Benfield, who did some amazing work in a Python HTTP stack, whom we tragically lost to a fruit company. But PyPI does the same thing. And there's nothing people can do in Git or Mercurial that can't be reversed. You just have to protect the master branch, and everybody has to go through pull requests. That's all. And if the process is clear, people will adhere to it. And if not, you just revert whatever they did and take their rights from them. But it has never happened to me, Corey, or PyPI. People do respect code. People do respect code more than other people, and that's a problem. You are much more likely to kick people off mailing lists than that you have to take away their commit bit. This is sad, but here we are. So finally, providing support can be quite stressful, especially in synchronous channels like IRC or, God forbid, Slack. So what I did is I started moving. I'm getting signs here, but I will use the full time, OK? No Q&A, sorry. I have a lot of content. There's lunch afterwards, so nobody will miss anything. I'm doing my best here. OK, so this has multiple advantages, Stack Overflow. So first, it's asynchronous. So people from San Francisco can ask, and I answer whenever I am awake in Berlin. So if, unless someone else didn't answer before, which is nice. And it's searchable, so answers don't just vanish into the ether after I answer them, like on IRC, for example. And I don't have to answer the same question multiple times, because that becomes the problem of Stack Overflow moderators, which is great. So and if I have to answer in the end, I actually get internet brownie points for it in a form of Stack Overflow reputation, which is also nice. So the thing is, this is all great, but I still don't want to hang around on the page all day just looking. No, sorry. Just looking for new questions. I have to. Sorry.
It's 11:55, so lunch begins in 5 minutes, so we wanted to give people time to get to lunch.
All right.
So if people want to leave, they can to go to lunch.
Yeah, so no hard feelings. If you are hungry. Yeah. whoever wants to leave from now, it's all cool. So I'm so sorry. I should have talked to you before. I usually announce it beforehand, but I'm really a little bit loopy. So I don't want to hang out there all day, so I set up tags for my projects, and then those tags are I follow using RSS. And I don't know if you heard RSS, but it's like Instagram, just without stories. Not just photos, you can post photos there too, and you can choose your own client, so it's kind of fun. So the only downside is someone with enough reputation, which is notably not me, has to set up the tags for you. So back to your pull request. Let's assume I reviewed it. While doing so, I did not have to pester you about the line length, the import order, type of quotes, trailing commas, lack of trailing commas, failing tests, broken documentation. And I'm not making this up. I pester people about all of this because I do deeply care about the code I'm publishing. Robots got to be the assholes. And everybody loves asshole robots. And studies have shown that people should take pestering from a robot less personal. It's just, I mean, unless it's some AI that is trained to be racist. But like, deterministic robots are usually OK. Yeah, merge it. As a maintainer, I find it important to say thank you. After all these years contributing to open source, I still find it somewhat rude when someone just merges my PRs without saying a word. It's just basic human interaction. So now, for everyone else to use your great contribution, it's time for the third and final act. Again, if you want to go eat, please go. I don't want to hold you. This is probably the least interesting one. What you need to realize now is that if you follow Act 1 and 2, you can release any time. Yeah, I'm sorry. How do we make this? Automate, automate, automate. Use proper date formats, and shipping is rather easy. If you automate it, I wrote a blog post on that, which I have just updated. And the most important part is this one. This is the link. Check it out. You will find everything you need to know in greater detail. That's it. Sorry.